Well, good morning, everyone. We want to thank you for joining us for our Coalition Academy this year, and specifically for this particular workshop, the OCPS test prep, preparing for the credentialing exam that is offered here in Ohio. We had the pleasure of having Jennifer Benson present on this topic. She is one of our lead trainers in the state of Ohio. We're very pleased to have her here. Before we go into the housekeeping slides, I'm going to introduce her bio, give a little background on her, and then we'll get into the housekeeping. So Jennifer Benson is an Ohio certified prevention consultant, and she is the owner of Prevention Across the Ages, which is a consulting firm which offers training and coaching for individuals and communities. She received her Bachelor of Arts degree in psychology from Florida State University and has worked in prevention for 20 years, engaging in school-based programming, community services, and coalition work. She enjoys training and working with individuals and communities, helping them gain the tools and skills needed to implement effective prevention practices. Along with 3 other colleagues, she developed the adult low-risk drinking curriculum called Minimize Risk, Maximize Life. So I'm going to go into our housekeeping slides and then we'll get started. So just so you know, continuing education will only be awarded for those who are currently viewing the live session. We will have a recording of this on our website, but to get the credit hours, you do need to attend the full session here. You must attend the entire training to receive the continuing education hours. So this workshop will end at 12:30. Now, post-event evaluation surveys are required to receive a continuing education, and you will get those at the end of this particular workshop. Within a couple hours, you will receive an automated email. Now, for nursing, social work, mental health counselor credits, you must provide your license number in the post-event evaluation survey. And for CHES credits, if you're a public health professional, you must provide your CHES ID in the post-event evaluation survey. You will receive your certificate for continuing education by email within 30 days of this training. If for some reason something comes up and it does not come through, please contact me if you want, Amanda Constarner at Prevention First, and we'll get you connected. So we are pleased to have Jennifer here. Thank you very much for being a part of this, and we hope you guys learn a lot about the prevention exam. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Amanda. All right, so yes, we are going to talk about the prevention exam. I know a lot of people hear exam or hear test or hear that they're going to have to take a test and get really nervous. But I want to tell you that there are a ton of resources. There's a ton of ways to practice. So we're going to go through some of those today and hopefully get you to a place where you feel like you're ready to do this. All right, so our objectives today. We're going to talk about the requirements. So make sure that you've got everything you need to be able to take that test. I'm going to give you a lot of resources, so you'll be able to access those resources. The majority of them are going to be free. I love free resources. And then we're also going to talk about what you need to study, because there are certain things that are going to be on the test more prevalent than others. So I'll give you some ideas on that. So first, I want to make sure that we kind of understand the credentialing process here in Ohio. In Ohio, we have the Ohio Chemical Dependency Professionals Board, and they're the ones who oversee all of the credentials. If you do not already have your RA, please get that ASAP. The registered applicant is the RA, and that is the first thing that you would need to do, because any credentialing is needed for prevention services, and they define their prevention services there. So it's anything that's prior to the onset of a behavioral health disorder. So if you're doing any kind of prevention, we need to get you credentialed one way or another. So after you get that, you would then look at maybe getting the Ohio Certified Prevention Specialist Assistant. No test is needed for that one. The next one after that would be the OCPS. That is the one that needs the test. And that's the one we're going to talk about passing. After you have that one, then for a couple of years, you can move up to the consultant level. You do not have to retake a test for that consultant level one. So, whoo, thank goodness, test is just once. Thank you, Sinessa. I see a little bit in the chat there. Thank you. All right, so we're going to talk about moving through those credentials. So if you have not really started this process, this is the way we really intend for this to go. So starting off within those first 3 months of work, you want to go ahead and get that RA. You cannot count any work experience until you have your RA. So that's the first thing you've got to do. So if you don't have that, reach out to me and I'll give you all my information at the end. We will get you that RA to start off with, because that's really what you need to do in those first few months of work. After you get that RA, then within that first year, you want to get that OCPSA. You don't have to go to this step, but I will tell you right now, because of how many people are going through the process, they're a little backed up at the board. So it might be good to go ahead and do this. Just kind of buys you a little more time. It's only 45 hours of education and 100 hours of experience. Don't have to take a test. Go ahead and get that OCPSA. After you've had a year of work experience, or about 2,000 hours, so kind of depends on how many hours you're doing in prevention, then you can apply to take the OCPS test. We'll talk specifically about what those requirements are, but the first thing is you have to have at least that 2,000 hours a year experience. So let's say you've taken that, you passed it, everything's going great. After you've had some more experience, then you can look at moving up to that OCPC. You do have to have some extra hours in HR and financial management, but you don't have to retake the test. So of course, that's a fabulous thing. Test once and you're done. So let's see what those requirements are to apply for the test, because we have to have these requirements before you can apply. So first, you have to have at least an associate's degree. You will have to send a copy of those transcripts, the official transcripts, to the board. They have an email address at the bottom of their website on how to do that. But that's one of the first things. The next is that 1 year, or at least 2,000 hours of prevention-related work experience. And the big thing with this is that you will have to have a supervisor sign off. So you have to have a supervisor who has the credentials able to supervise someone with an OCPS. And you can find those on the board website. It's a little convoluted, or you can reach out to me and I can help you figure that one out. The next thing is 120 hours of prevention education in the specific content areas. So if you've already filled out your RA, you will know that there are at least 6, but then when they move to the OCPSA, they add 2 extras, but at least 6 different content areas. So you have to have a certain number of hours in each one of those content areas. Basically, they want a prevention specialist who is well-rounded and understands a little bit about a lot of different things. Doesn't mean you have to do a ton of work in every one, but you have to at least have some understanding in all those different domains. Some of those hours can be college hours. Half of the hours for the OCPS have to be within the 5 years prior to applying, which means that the other 5 can be from however long ago it needs to be. So you could have 60 hours within the last couple of years, and then maybe the other 60 hours may be from college classes you had 10 years ago. Obviously, then the next thing is you have to complete that examination and successfully pass it. And that's what we're really going to dig into here in a minute. You also have to complete the online application, and this is one that needs to be renewed every 2 years. So we really have to make sure that you have all of those requirements prior to applying for the exam, because you don't want to turn in an application that's just going to get bounced back. I will tell you though, a high majority of the applications do get bounced back, usually for something small, like you don't have the right dates on something, or you need to have your name on something. So don't get frustrated if it does get bounced back, because that happens. So let's kind of jump in to, when we're looking at the test, how do we actually pass this test? We say test and it's this big, huge, horrible thing, but really you can break it down into some smaller pieces. One thing that sounds simple, but can really make a difference, is to read the question. Cover that answer. It's going to be on computer. You do everything on computer, but cover the answer with your hand and read the question and say, okay, what is it really asking? Is it asking for, a type of intervention? Is it asking for a population? Kind of just figure out, what is that question really asking? Then sometimes it's good to rephrase it in your own words. So what do I know about this, and how can I see it in my own way? And then before you uncover that answer, again, you're going to be having your hand over all the answers. You're going to say, what do I think I know? What do I think that answer might be? And you may not have the exact answer, but you may have something close. Then you can look at those answers. Obviously, if it's on the computer, please don't mark out the ones that are incorrect. But we're going to do some samples here so you can see how that works. You can usually narrow it down to about 2. Sometimes you can't, but for the most part, most of the questions can be narrowed down. And then once you get to those last 2, what do I know about this? So this is kind of that first step, looking at reading the question. What do I know about this? What is this question really asking? Do I know the answer without looking at the answers? After you read the question, then we want to look at, what are some of those clue words that might be in the question. So first look, if there's 2 answers that are opposite, you might be able to say that one of them's correct. So if it's, one thing is always sunny and one is always rainy, then 2 of those might be, one of those might be one of the correct answers. If you see these words in any of them, I just said always, but always, never, all, or must, we know that those kinds of words don't really work in prevention. There's nothing that always is one way, or all this way, or must do this. So it's probably not going to be the correct answer. Now, again, it's never an always not the right answer. If you're looking at some words that may make it correct, things like seldom, generally, tend to, probably, usually, look for those words, because they may be in an answer that's correct. Also look for, and this takes me back to my high school English classes, but look for grammatical clues between the question and the choices. So if you've got a question and an answer that have the same verb tense or the same noun and verbs that agree, it might be the right answer. So, after we've narrowed it down to those 2, then look for those kinds of things. Now, again, do not be writing on this computer, but instead of underlining, just kind of think of some of those words or phrases from the books that you've looked at, or some of the resources we're going to talk about. What might be something that fits from what I've read into these answers. Now you might say, well, I'm not doing math, so why do I need to worry about numbers? There may be some numbers in there, and it's mostly on things like percentages or degrees. So look at those that are completely out of the realm of each other, and then narrow it down to the ones that might be more specific. So this is just some general ideas of how to study. So let's look at some real specific questions and kind of go through how we would do this in real life. Now, again, this test is going to be on the computer, so you won't be able to write on it, but we're gonna mark it out on this screen. So let's say this is one of our questions. You're planning to use a proven evidence-based program, but realize it's not feasible to implement all of the program components. You should, now let's kind of put our hand over those answers and think about, okay, so a proven evidence-based program. So what are some things we know about evidence-based programs? They've been researched, they've been written by somebody, they are on some kind of list usually, so that they are seen as something that's replicated over and over again. And you realize that it's not feasible to implement all of the program components. Okay, so those are some things we know about that. Also think about if I had an evidence-based program, what have I done in the past? So now let's kind of look at these answers. So the answers that they provided were, maybe you'll not proceed at all with your choice, consult with the program's developers to determine potential impact, go ahead as most programs can be modified to meet local circumstances, or add additional alternatives to fill out the missing components. So just think about that for a second. And if you look at it, there's kind of two that are pretty much the opposite. Those two would be, whoops, that kind of got off a little bit, didn't it? Not proceed at all with your choice, or go ahead and just do it. Well, those are opposite things, and neither of them really are going to work because we know this is evidence-based. So to go ahead and just modify everything is not going to work. And to not proceed at all with your choice, that may be an option, but it's not going to be the one we're looking at. So we're left with consult with the program's developers or add additional alternatives. Well, we also know, looking back at the question, it's an evidence-based program. So we're not going to want to add any additional alternatives to fill out the missing components because what we add has not been researched. So the answer for this one would be to consult with the program's developers to determine the potential impact. We don't want to just go ahead and change things up, but the program developers generally like it when you call them and say, hey, I really like your program. How can we modify it for this? Or how can we adapt it for this? So when we're looking at the test questions, you'll see that A and C are kind of those opposites. And then when you get down to B and D, you'll realize that consulting with the program's developers would be the answer. Let's look at another question. A proven strategy aimed at informing broad segments of society is called a, so again, cover up those answers. So we're going to think about a proven prevention strategy. Okay, so it's not going to be necessarily a program, it's going to be a strategy. And it's going to be aimed at informing broad segments of society. So we're looking at something that would be for a lot of people. So then we look at our answers, and we have universal intervention, selective intervention, indicated intervention, and risk and protective approach. So just looking at those, we can probably eliminate that bottom one, mostly because it's completely different than the other three. It's kind of that song from Sesame Street. One of these things is not like the others. So then we're back to these three. Now, if you remember our lovely little protractor from the Institute of Medicine, the Continuum of Care, universal, selective, and indicated are the three population pie pieces in that continuum of care. Universal, selective, and indicated are the three different segments of a society that we could be putting an intervention into. When you look at the question again, informing broad segments, you can kind of think broad is more of a universal type thing. So the answer would be universal. Let's look at a couple more. And these are all questions that have come from some practice tests. So they're questions that have been used previously. All right, let's look at this one. What question should be asked at the highest level of prevention evaluation? So a couple things with that. We know we're looking at evaluation. So that's when a program is complete, what kind of things have happened, whether it's process or outcome, and that's a whole other question that could happen. But, you know, kind of that end result. The other piece in that question is that word highest, the highest level of prevention evaluation. So when we think about evaluation, you could have some of those process evaluations, you could have some of the midterm, the milestones. There's all kinds of words that we could think about with evaluation. But for this question, they're looking at what is that highest level? Okay, so now look at the answers. We have, did the community-wide behaviors change? Did intended participants attend regularly? Did program participants' behaviors change? Did participants' attitudes change, or did self-esteem improve? So those are our potential answers. So just looking at that, when we go back and look at the highest level, we know that attending regularly is a process evaluation question, and that's not our ultimate goal. So when we look at highest, we think of what's our ultimate goal. Our ultimate goal is not just to have people attend. That's fabulous. That's great. That's going to be a step, but that's not going to be what our highest level or our main goal is going to be. And we also can look at, did the program participants' behavior change? Yeah, that's a high level, but it may not be the highest. Attitudes or self-esteem, not necessarily. But looking at that community-wide behavior change, that's going to be your highest level. So knowing that maybe, maybe your assessment was that 26% of high school seniors stated that they had alcohol in the last month. The community-wide behavior change would be that entire community changed their behavior, and now it's 20%. Not just the participants, because you might be looking at C there and saying, well, participant behavior. It's not just the participants, it's the entire community. All right, let's look at, we've got two more of these, and then we're going to really dig into how to study. So this one says the first step in developing community prevention strategies is. So again, cover up those answers. We want to look at the first step. So when you think of steps in developing community prevention strategies, you can think of a couple of things like taking steps, like logic models, like assessments, like planning, like a strategic planning framework. So this is thinking about what's that first step. Now, if you have ever been through a SPIF training, you'll know that the SPIF doesn't necessarily have steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, but there is a place to start. So when you're looking at developing a community strategy, we would love to go in and immediately just do it, but we know that now that is not the best plan. So planning and implementation are not going to be the things we do. The first step is that assessment. Got to go in and see what is going on in the community and what do we want to change or affect. All right, last one. And I'm going to tell you that this one is probably not, I found some things out about some training, some test questions I'm going to tell you, but this one may not be one of them. But which of the following is categorized as a depressant drug? So if you look at all of the answers, we know that alcohol is a depressant. So any questions on how to kind of look through test questions? I know this seems like, oh yeah, I knew all of this. But when you actually get in there, it's going to be important to kind of follow through a strategy. All right, so we're going to talk now about where to focus your study time. And I have been running a study group, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but in the last month, I've had 7 people from the study group take the test. All 7 passed, so it is possible. But the main thing they said that was on that test is coalition work, coalition work, coalition work, coalition work. So if you're someone who does mostly school-based prevention, which is fabulous, great, perfect, you've got to really focus on the CADCA primers. And I would also encourage you to attend some coalition meetings. Right now, the fabulous thing is you should be able to find tons of coalition meetings online. There are tons that are in, that might be already on YouTube that you can watch in your own time. You don't even have to watch it live. But coalition work has been really pounded into me that's what's on the test. Don't freak out if you don't do coalition work, because we're gonna talk about ways to get some of that. But the CADCA primers, and I'm gonna show you a little bit about what those are here in a minute, but the CADCA primers are gonna be your best friend. Looking at evaluation words. So a couple questions back, I said things like outcome evaluation, process evaluation. All of those things are going to be important to look at. Planning words. So things like community readiness. I was also told that there are things about community readiness on that test. Needs assessments, risk and protective factors, resource assessment, targeting the population. So in other words, again, that universal selective indicated, best practices, evaluations, make sure that that you are really, so the handouts, I know that they're going to have the PowerPoint on the website. Oh, and fabulous. So they have given you guys a list of some coalitions in Greater Cincinnati. Please attend some of those, because that's going to be really, really helpful. All right. So all of those kinds of things, I'm going to show you where you're going to learn some of those, but all of those words are going to be questions that it might be a question like, what, if your community is in this state of readiness, what would be something you could do to move them to the next state? So just understanding what community readiness is, that there are different levels of community readiness will be important. And then, of course, another big one is that strategic prevention framework. If you don't know about the SPIF, if you don't quite understand how the SPIF works, first of all, know that it's the SPIF and not the SPF. But look into as many trainings as you can on that. Google it, because there's some fabulous documents out there about the different steps with the SPIF. But that is going to be one that's going to be on there. It's going to be things like that question earlier that said, what is the first step? There may be questions on there that say, these are parts of the SPIF except whatever. So make sure that you are really looking at that SPIF. Okay, so someone just took it. Cultural competence was big on yours. Yeah, any part of that SPIF is going to be something I would really dig into. Logic model words. So words that might be in a logic model, goal statements, strategies. So it might say, which of these is an example of a strategy? And it may have something like universal population, evaluation, different things. And then a strategy like, implementing life skills in the classrooms. So look and see what might be some of those things. If then statements. I don't know how much that will be on the test, but at least understand what that is. If community A creates an opportunity for parents to learn how to communicate, then the parents might communicate better with their teens. And if the teens and parents communicate more, then the teens might be less likely to use. Short-term outcomes and long-term impacts, and understand the difference between those. A short-term would be what's just going to happen at the end of the program. Long-term, what's going to happen in the next couple of years. And then definitely knowing a lot of this basic theory. The universal selected and indicated, that would be like, this class is a health class in 9th grade at XYZ middle school. Is this a universal selected or indicated population? Or it might be that students of migrant workers in a group. That one would be selected because it's they haven't indicated by their behavior. Continuum of care, again, just understand that that's that protractor thing. Understand what that is. Risk and protective theory. I was told that was a big one on this one person's test. A lot of things about what is and isn't a risk factor. So look up risk and protective factor theory, look up, look at the lists of what are and aren't risks and protective factors so that you can kind of understand. It's also understanding, that's what you would use then to match up with a strategy. What is the risk factor and what strategy can we use to overcome that? Resiliency approach, there may be something on there, but I wouldn't focus as much on that one, or developmental assets. As far as the 6 CSAP strategies, understand them, but know that environmental is going to be the main one that they're going to talk about. They're really focused on that environmental strategies right now. So I'm going to show you this slide, but don't freak out because Miss Amanda is going to put these into the chat box. But these resources are resources that you can use a lot of different ways. So the practice test there at the top is on a website. Don't worry about, writing these down, because again, we'll make sure that you get these in the chat. But that's a free website that has some practice tests, and I'll show you here in a minute how to access that. Thank you, ma'am. It's old test questions. If you're like me and you're so old that you did not take tests in school on computer, you might want to at least practice that a few times, because taking a test on the computer is a little bit different than taking it pen and paper. I didn't have to do that when I was growing up. So that would be one thing I would definitely practice. You can take that 150 times if you want, because it's free. The next one there is that Rhode Island study guide. It is the one that the ICNRC, who is the agency that is over all of the credentialing for the country. It's the one that they recommend. Again, free. Free is always a good thing. The next one is something that I have put together. So if you are someone who likes digital type things, computer things, these are, Cram is a website where you can create digital flashcards. So I took all of the CADCA primers and I took the glossaries in the back and made flashcards out of them. You can do several different things on that website. Again, it's a free website to sign up. If you want to go to that link that Amanda put in there, fabulous. Or you can just search like CADCA in the Cram flashcards site. You can just do a front and back, where you click on it and try to see if you can figure out what the answer is. They've got one where it's a matching. They give you several words and you try to match it with the definition or what would be on the back of the flashcard. They also have some games that you can play, which is kind of fun. So if you're the kind of person that likes to do online things, I would go ahead and download that Cram. Pull up those CADCA ones if you're sitting waiting for your next group to start, or if you're at the doctor's office. Anytime you've got 10-15 minutes, just play some of those cards. It's going to just help you get through that in your brain again. The candidate guide is something, and if we have time at the end, I'm going to pull this up. But this is something that's got a lot of information about how to, what's on the test, how they score it, which is important. And it kind of gives you some of those behind the scenes type of things. And then again, at the end is the primers. So some people don't see a link. Do you see in the chat, if you scroll
I'm going to resend it, Jennifer.
Okay.
It needs to go to everybody. Sorry about that. Here you go. It's coming.
Yeah, sometimes that happens. We just send it to ourselves and we don't realize.
Yeah, thank you.
So the CADCA primers are all online, and you can get them free. Look at them online. I would not suggest printing them out, but if you're one that likes to print things out, you can. There's kind of a lot. But let me show you while she's resending those links. That first one, that free practice test, you'll have to kind of scroll down, and then that's where you will take that practice test. Again, it's free. You can take it 100 times if you want. I had one person who a couple of years ago, she took it, she said probably about 100 times, but again, mostly because she wanted to get over that anxiety of taking an online test. So however it works for you, do that. The next thing I'll show you is this is how kind of Cram will come up and there's even been people who put in other things, not just me. So when you share or when you search for CADCA, you'll see all kinds of things come up. And this is some of what it will look like. So again, you can play some games. You could do, just a front and back flip card, whatever works best for your learning style. Cool. So it looks like everyone's getting that. Perfect. These are 3 of the 8 CADCA primers. So when you go onto that link that was put in there, you'll have to scroll down and look at them. Yes, so she just put up another link of some of the coalitions in the area, in the Cincinnati area. But again, these CADCA primers and coalition work is going to be hammered on the test. So please, please, please know something about coalition work. Maybe, you can go with someone or just sit down with someone and talk about it, but it is going to be big. So go through these primers, go through, watching some coalition meetings. So next I'm going to show you what the ICNRC, which is, again, that's the board, the national board that creates and houses the exam. Of these 6 content areas, these are the percentage of test questions that are in each content area. So as you can see, looking at this planning and evaluation, that is big. That is the biggest content area. If you want to know exactly what that means, I'm going to show you here in a bit the candidate guide, but that's everything about data, which is such, that's always our funnest part, isn't it? But data, evaluation methods, outcome methods. So that is your biggest part. And then you can see that prevention, education, and service delivery, community organization, and professional growth and responsibility are all about equal, around 15%. Communication about 13%, and then public policy and environmental change around 12%. Now, I understand that this may have kind of shifted a little bit to the more of the environmental change. But again, that those CADCA primers. So when you are getting ready to actually take the exam, it's got 150 multiple choice questions with 4 options. So it's not essays, it's not short answers, it's all multiple choice. So again, remember when you were in school, how you had to answer those multiple choice questions, use some of those strategies. 125 of them are scored. So that means that's because 125 of the 150 are questions that they're kind of testing out. So let's say that somebody answered all 125 of those scored questions correctly, but didn't get any of the pre-test items. Then they know that those are probably not good test questions because someone who obviously knows their stuff didn't get them right. So you're not going to know which ones are the ones that they're testing out. But just know that there's going to be some that you're going to think, I don't even remember thinking about this, knowing anything about this. It could be one of the 25. It could be one of the 125 that you're getting tested on, but there are those extras. It's 3 hours long. So if you look at 3 hours, 150 questions, you've got plenty of time. So just take your time, take a deep breath, answer the questions, don't get rushed on it. At the end of the test, you will get a preliminary pass or fail. So it'll say, congratulations, or it'll say, try again. I say preliminary because there could be a chance that you may have missed it by 1 or 2, or you may have passed it by 1 or 2, and they want to go back and check it, or there may be something that they need to look at, or you may have not followed some rules and you may have passed it, but you didn't follow a rule for something else. So I've never had anybody get that preliminary pass and then later it was a fail, but just know that, it's going to be preliminary at that point. But here's some really good news. Ohio prevention professionals pass at a higher rate than any other state. And we also have more certified prevention professionals than any other state. So you're in good company. Reach out to the people around you, because we're the ones, this entire state is going to be the support for you, because we're the ones that have done such a good job, obviously. You do have to take all 150 questions. I wasn't sure of that answer before, but I just got confirmation that yes, you do have to take all 150 questions. I know it's not the okay, so the minimum passing score, we're gonna look at that in just a minute. So hold on to that question. It's actually not too bad. So the next step is going to be going ahead and applying for that exam. You have to have your e-license account, which everyone who has an RA at least should have that e-license account. You'll upload everything, including that education grid, including all of your certificates. Really, the reality is that I'm sure there are people who can do that on their own, but if you need help, I'm going to give you my information at the end. You reach out, because it is not easy to get everything up there. And the more help you get, the more likely you are to hang on. So you need to know nobody can do it on their own. If you need help, reach out, please. Somebody asked how long the OCPS is good for. Once you get past that RA, all of them are 2-year certifications. So you do have to renew at the end of those 2 years. I would highly suggest that if you are looking to move from the OCPSA to the OCPS, you give yourself at least 6 months. So, start looking at applying 6 months before it expires, because we don't want anybody to have it expire and then you're not ready to take the test yet. So definitely make sure that you're, think ahead. Begin studying all of these things that we just talked about, all of those resources. Just start studying. Reach out to other people who are taking the test. If you are the kind of person who likes a study group, sign up for a study group. There's lots of different study groups. Yes, I do have a study group that I run that I have incredibly fun time with. I'm kind of a dork because it's a lot of fun for me. But if you want to do a study group, find one that you want to sign up for. The one that is through OCAM, the Ohio Coaching and Mentoring Network, is at no cost to you. But there's others. So if you're waiting to take the test, can you go back and apply for the OCPSA? If you've already applied for the OCPS and you've been approved to take the test, I think was the question. I'm not sure. Reach out to me. We'll have to figure that one out. If you want to sign up for, and I know we're going to give this to you, then yes, send us reach out to me. This link that I'm putting in the chat right now is how you will sign up for the OCAM newsletters and find out when the next study group will be. But again, breathe. It's okay. You're gonna get through this. I promise. We will get through it together. Once you are approved, so like someone in the chat was just saying she applied, but she hasn't heard back yet. Once you are approved, you'll get an email from our board here in Ohio that'll say you've been approved. We're going to send your stuff to ICNRC. They'll send your stuff to ICNRC, which is the International Certification of Reciprocity Consortium. Basically that overarching group that does all of the credentialing. I'm hearing right now it'll take less than a week, but don't be surprised if it takes 2 weeks to get an email from them that says, here's how you register for the exam. Again, these are all on computer, so you will register at one of those testing sites. I'm going to show you on the next slide some of the places where they are, but they're all over the state. In fact, Ohio has one of the highest numbers as I look through all the states. Most of the states have a couple places. And as far as when they are open, most days of the week. So you just pick a day and a time that works for you and that they're open. So the question about, total questions answered correctly, but you need to answer every question because they're not going to delete any or deduct any points for things that you've answered. So go ahead and answer everything. If you have no clue whatsoever, do a best guess. Again, 125 scored items, 25 pre-test items, 3 hours. Here is the list of the testing sites. I don't know exactly where in each one of these because you'd have to contact them, but these are all the ones that we have around the state. So as you see, we've got a lot of different places. Now, if you are someone who requires, some kind of special accommodations, whether it's, testing red tea or whatever, you have to reach out to the ICNRC and give them some time to figure that one out. So you may be limited on your number of testing sites, but these are the testing sites throughout Ohio. So if you are, wherever you are near, you can go ahead and take them. I had someone a couple of years ago that she had signed up to take a test. It was, I think, in January or February. And of course, it was the one day that we had 50 million inches of snow. She just had to call them and reschedule. So, make sure you've got all of the numbers of the testing sites. So we've got a lot of options for where we can take the test. There are some rules. So I would, again, you may get that preliminary pass or fail at the end, but you're not going to pass if you have had any kind of misconduct. So if you are writing on anything, again, don't write on the computer screen. If there's someone else there, even if they're taking a different exam, just don't look over there. I know that these seem to be kind of obvious rules, but there are things, that you could get in trouble for. So don't look at someone else's stuff. Don't talk with someone while you're sitting in there. Don't take pictures of things. Personally, I would leave your cell phone in the car if you can. You just don't want to have it beep and then you look down and then they think you're looking at something. So definitely make sure you're following the rules because we don't want any of that to get misconstrued that you were doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. Now, I want to show you the candidate guide. That was one of the links. And I'm going to see if I can do this correctly. So are you guys seeing my candidate guide, hopefully? This is one, it doesn't necessarily have, it does have a little bit of test prep in it, but this is what really will show you some of the things you need to know for the test. So I would definitely download this and look through it. As you can see, it talks about, being eligible, about whether the rules, how they developed it, whether or not you're eligible. Again, our state has certain rules that are in line with the ICNRC rules, so you don't have to worry about that as much. They talk about, what you need to bring. Make sure you bring an ID because you want to make sure that they know it's you. Definitely looking at, the weather type things. Again, keep this on you because she had no clue she wasn't going to be able to make it there. She was halfway there and the snow apocalypse had come. So make sure that you've got all of that. Then let's look at, so here's some of the special accommodation issues. So if that is something that you want to pursue, make sure that you read through this and let them know. So here's the question, some questions on scoring. So you will, all the scores will be sent to the ICNRC. They'll take a little bit of time now. Those of us who had to take the paper and pencil test, it took 6 weeks for us to get our answers, which are pass or fail, which was just painful. So you guys are lucky that you get it right away. So the scores are from 200 to 800. I know that there's a mathematical reason for that, but again, I'm a preventionist. 500 is a passing. So think about that. If you've got 200 to 800 with 500 passing, it's around 50%, right? So even if you get a 510, you've still passed the exam. So, remember, it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be perfect. All right, I'll make sure that, let's see, let's do this. Just in case. Try that candidate guide link. All right, so candidates are provided with official score letters that report a final scored. Okay, perfect. I'm glad that one worked. But that'll be down the road. So again, you get that preliminary pass or fail at the beginning. They may have to look at scaling some things. Again, that's not something that, we really have to worry about too much. But they do figure out all of that. You can read through that part. Passing score established through a process called a standard setting. So they've kind of figured out what all of that would mean. Again, answer each question. They don't deduct for wrong answers. There are multiple forms, so not everybody's test is going to be the same. That being said, of the 7 people who most recently took it, like within the last month, all 7 said coalition work, coalition work, coalition work. So definitely know about that. Again, they tell you a little bit about that pre-testing and failing scores. If you feel like your 499 should have been a 500 passing, there is a way to do a grievance. You just have to go through this process. You can retake, but you have to wait a minimum of 90 days after your examination. During those 90 days, if you do take it and don't pass, reach out. We'll do some coaching and get you there. Again, this is that percentage of what content area has what percentage. And then this is the piece I really wanted to show you. So if you look at this and you say, okay, planning and evaluation is 30% of the test. That's a third of the test. I really need to make sure I'm planning on or learning about that. Starting on page 12 of this candidate guide, they go into depth about what they mean when they say planning and evaluation. So they've got data analysis and techniques, stages of community readiness. So you can look that up. All of these different skills. This is where it gets real specific. It's got, let's see, just for that one, they've got 15, no. Wow, 20 tasks for that one. So that's why it's 30% of the exam. Then you can look at prevention, education, and service delivery, what kind of things they feel like are important under that one. So this is where you can kind of look through maybe and either check off or highlight the things that you think, oh, I've got that down, or, oh, that's something I need to know a little bit more about. And as we go through these, there's a lot of pages of all these tasks. They also do have some sample questions here. So you've got lots of different ways to find some sample tests. That website here, and also in the back of that Rhode Island guide. And then this right here is the last thing that's going to be big important. So this reference list are all of the references that they used to create that exam. Like when they make a question, let's say question number 72, and here's the question, and they have to say, this is from the Center for Substance Abuse Prevention manual, page 32, paragraph 7. So if it's not in one of these documents, it's not on the test. So if you are really struggling and you want to really get specific, go through this reference list. There's only, 12 things. I know 12's a lot, but it's better than saying all prevention stuff. These are the things you can specifically look at and study. So that's why I like everyone to get this candidate guide and look through this. You can see the things, the CADCO primers right there. Learning about the SPIF, community planning. So you can see why they say so much of it is on those topics. So definitely download this guide. They even got links on some of these, which makes it easier for you. So go through those links, go through those topics for your studying. So all of this, I don't want to freak you out that there's so much stuff, but remember, we want our field of prevention to be a professional field that is seen in the community, in the nation, as a professional group that has integrity, has ethics, and has knowledge. And so, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's worth it. Again, if you sign up for that OCAM newsletter that I put in the chat, you can get notifications of future study groups that are going on, or any of the trainings. If there is a coalition training somewhere, take it. I know that Andrea Hoff does a lot of those. I know PAA does a lot of those. So take Coalition Academy. Take as many of those kinds of trainings as you can, because you're gonna use that information for sure. But also, when I do the next study group, you will get, if you sign up for the study group, you get a nice little study guide. It's thick, it's a big one. And you get 8 study sessions, you get some personal one-on-one coaching. And then if you take and pass the test, you get a $50 reimbursement. So that's a good thing too. So applying for the RA, please do that ASAP if you have not done that already. but you would go onto the chemical dependency website and fill out this professional development plan. There's a lot involved in creating this. So if you have questions specifically about this, I'm getting ready to give you my information, please reach out, because it's not just, and don't just put something like, I will continue my education in prevention, because they are, they're getting those and they're not happy about those. So we want to make it intentional, and we want to make it specific to you. So that's the form you would turn in to get that RA. You cannot start counting your experience until you have that RA. So you've got to get that. That is my email. A couple of things on this, just make sure you put that D in the middle, because whoever, Jennifer Benson is a pretty common name. So you don't want to end up with that other poor Jennifer Benson who gets all my emails. And then again, I am part of the OCAM group. So you can get all kinds of resources through OCAM. Any other questions before we? I think I answered everything that people asked. Not sure. Didn't see any others. So they will have the slides on the website. I'm not sure, Amanda, I don't know if you know how long that it will take.
Oh, the website to have it uploaded?
Yeah.
I would say give us about at most a week.
But again, if you need something before then, reach out. So past experience does not count unless you have that RA. So that's why I'm telling everyone, and that was a rule that started last November in 2020. So that's why I'm telling everyone, get that RA ASAP. I'm going to use every acronym we can. But reach out to me. We can get it done in hour and a half. You'll then show it to your supervisor and upload it, and get that RA right away, because you can't count any of your experience until you get that. So someone asked, do I have to reapply if I don't pass the test the first time? You have to re-sign up for the test, but you don't have to send it back to the chemical dependency board. So, and as far as how many times you can take the test, I know someone who took it 4 times and then she just passed it. You do have to wait in between, but don't ask how many times you can take it, because we're going to get you to pass it. So don't worry about how many times you're going to take it. As far as a study group coming up, I'm in the middle of one. I will probably start another one, I would say end of February. So signing up for that newsletter will get you that information. Also, if you are on Facebook, I know not everybody is, but if you're on Facebook, get into that Ohio Prevention Professionals group. And there's a bunch of stuff that you can have in there. It's the Ohio Prevention Professionals. You'll have to request and then be admitted. But the nice thing about that group is you'll see a lot of trainings first there. You hop on them before other people do. A lot of people ask questions, and it's a great place to just share. So as far as letting your OCPS expire, kind of depends on how long you had it expire. I don't think you'll need to start back with, well, I don't think you can start back with your RA, but your experience under your OCPS that you had prior to it expiring will count. So as far as how long it takes to wait for the RA approval, it doesn't take that long. Right now I'm hearing a week. So don't freak out too much. So if you're really desperate, reach out to me. Marissa, reach out to me. I've got some options that I can help you out with. But we're not going to worry about the worst case scenario. We're going to pass it. So don't freak out about that. But please, I know that there's tons of questions about, different situations. Don't feel like you should have to do all of this on your own. Reach out. I hate to say it this way, but people feel so worried about reaching out to me. Remember, I get paid for this. So it's not only do I geek out and get excited about it, but you're helping me out there too. So the more people that reach out, the better. And the board really likes it when I work with someone, because then it comes through a little bit nicer. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
I would just remind people about, if there is coalition questions on the test, which Jennifer's saying that is the case, to get a feel for that. Really, there's so many different coalitions. We have 35 in this area, Kentucky, Indiana, and Southwestern Ohio, that a lot of them are virtual still. So you can get a feel for what the type of work that they do. And I think that will help with your test taking.
100%. That's the nice thing about right now, is that a lot of them too are recording them.
Mm-hmm.
You can see if they're online somewhere. Coalition that I used to run in Milford, their meetings are online, on YouTube. So yes.
And I'll give my email as well if you want to know a particular one in your area and you want to know if they're meeting or just want to pick the director's brain about coalition development. So there's my email.
Yeah, that everybody is saying, oh my goodness, I did not realize how much of it was going to be coalition work. Which, it's good to know. Good to know ahead of time.
Okay. All right, I guess I will do this.
Yeah, and I'll just keep watching here. If there's other questions, you can throw them in.
Perfect. Okay, well, we have, we still got a couple minutes, but so the recording and supplemental materials will be available on our website, which is prevention-first.org. Give us about a week, and we usually keep them up there until the next Coalition Academy, so they'll be up there for a year. Complete the evaluation survey. It will be sent out after this, if you registered. If not, you can also scan this QR code and do that. And we are very much a part of Facebook and Twitter if you would like to join us on there. And then I would just add a couple more workshops that we have left for today. We have another keynote at 1 o'clock from our improv comedy partners. It's Improv Cincinnati. They're going to do an afternoon booster on how to supercharge your engagement. That is a keynote, and that's coming up at 1 o'clock. We also have a workshop at 2:45 on youth mental health awareness and suicide prevention initiatives. That is a panel discussion as well. We also have a really good workshop from Working Partners at 2:45. They're an organization out of Columbus, and they're going to focus on the employer's role in preventing and responding to the harmful use of alcohol and other drugs. And then at 4:15 to 5 o'clock, just a 45-minute presentation from AAA locally. That is called Double Trouble, a look at OVI in Ohio and the enhanced risks of alcohol and marijuana use. So that will wind down our Coalition Academy for this year. And we want to thank you very much for participating. And feel free to give us ideas on what topics you'd like to see. We provide other trainings throughout the year. And then we get ready every year for Coalition Academy. So thank you very much, Jennifer.
Don't log off yet, because I have one more.
Right, I do see a
can leave,
question.
but I see I've got
And
one
then-
question I want to answer real quick. Anybody can look up online to see. All right, so Denise, you have an application number. You don't have a approval number yet. So just in case anybody wants to ever look it up, you can look up your own application and see if it's got APP, that means it's still in an application status. Just
Okay, and I
wanted to
see
answer
another
that.
one come through. The evaluation form, you can either scan the QR code on the screen right there with your phone, or you will receive an evaluation link after this, within an hour of this workshop ending.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jennifer.